Hey there YouTube, late night DailyCuber here once again, and today we have a pretty big unboxing actually from a couple people I follow and also are followers of mine on Instagram. Without further ado, let's get right into these. First up, we have a package from @DailyCuber on Instagram. I'll make sure to put the link to his Instagram and also YouTube in the description below. But without further ado, let's get right into this package here. This is a magnetized MF3RS2 that he was selling through Instagram. I decided to pick up. As you can see, here's the cube right here, very well packed in some foam packaging material. And this should be magnetized with 5x1 N48 magnets, I believe. And as you can see, just in the standard box there, let's get this right out of here and get right into first turn. I'm very excited to try this out. I actually have a MF3RS2, and wow, first impressions, that feels way different than any MF3RS2 that I've tried before. That one feels absolutely amazing. I can see why a lot of people are going to these as their main, namely like the Cubologist, and I believe definitely a few others besides that. Wow, that is super smooth. It almost feels like a GTS2 in my opinion, but just a little bit slower and more controllable than that cube there. And wow, that is actually really amazing. Let me quickly pull a piece out of here and see the magnets inside the pieces. It's actually interesting. It seems like he's glued them together here, so I can't actually get one open to see the magnets, but it's not a big deal. That actually served to have a bit more of a solid feel in the turning, which I've noticed in cubes mainly that pop easily like my Dienma. But this cube, all in all, wow, first impressions are very impressive. This cube turns absolutely amazingly. I'll definitely be doing an average 100 on this here fairly shortly and posting that to my Instagram to kind of see how it performs in that situation. But I think this is going to be one of the best cubes in my collection, all in all, for speed cubing. Definitely will be interesting to compare this to the Little Magic M, which is my current favorite budget cube. This one could definitely take that place. This cube is very good, and I'm very glad to have an opportunity to try this one out. Definitely a lot different than the other MF3RS2M that I have. I definitely think there's a difference in the plastic between the stickerless and the black plastic one, because the other one I have is in black plastic, and it feels definitely quite a bit different than this one. I think a little bit less soft than this. I don't know exactly how much different I can describe it than that, but it definitely has a different feel to it. So definitely try out the two different plastic types if you're going to try the MF3RS2. I don't think I've tried it in actually like the stickerless plastic here, but anyway, that one definitely feels a lot different than the black plastic, so it is kind of interesting to note. Let's move on to the next package here. This is probably the main bulk of this video. This is a giant package from Cubing on Instagram. She was trying to sell some cubes, and I decided to take some off her hands. So, as you can see, this package of the result is very heavy. Let me see if there's a weight on this here quickly. Just marked as medium flat weight box, but if I had to guess, this package is around 10 pounds. So let's quickly cut this open and get right into it. Okay, there it is open, and let's just dump it right on the table here and see exactly what we have. And wow, as you can see here, quite a few cubes. So before I get into that, there's actually a letter in here, so let me quickly read that. DailyCuber, thanks for buying these cubes. I hope you enjoy them. Thanks for trading the Volk Power M. Thanks, Cubing. But without further ado, let's get right into these one by one. I'm super excited. There are a lot of them here, and these should be really cool. So like I said, I'm just going to get into these one by one. First up here, we actually have a MF3RS puzzle, and this is the MF3RS Molecube. And wow, first off, that has a really weird feel to it. It's super clicky and very solid feeling, which is kind of different than like the YJ ball puzzle or similar puzzles that I felt before. This is actually a really interesting puzzle. It's basically a Sudoku cube, which Sudoku, if you don't know, you have to get the same color on every face, one of each different color, and then you have to get one of each different color on every face. So basically, it's a very hard to solve puzzle. It does solve like a normal 3x3, but it definitely has an added, very difficult factor to it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to actually solve this puzzle, but either way, it's very interesting to have a MF3RS Molecube. It's a cube I've been meaning to get for a while, and here it is. It definitely turns very interestingly. Next up here, we just have a standard Lan 2x2x3. It's a good puzzle, but it's definitely not super great compared to the new Chi that came out. Cool to have another one for the collection. I think this is my third one of these that I have actually, which is kind of interesting. The other one I have actually has split in the stickers though, and the stickers on this one look quite a bit better than that. Next up here, actually a puzzle that I sold off a while ago and kind of regretted selling, and now I have again, I guess, is a Lan 3x3x2. It's a very good cube board. Actually, the Cube Twist version of it is quite a bit better than the original Lan, but it's still really good to have this one for the collection, and I'm glad to have one of these again. I did sell this one off a while ago. Corner cutting on this one is just a little bit, but all in all, it actually turns very, very well. Just not quite as good as the new Cube Twist one. It does not have the weird feature that you can actually turn it in this direction, so it's a little bit more solidly assembled than that one. Next up here, we actually have an Alexander Star. As you can see on there, ITC 1982, made in China, and if I look somewhere else on here on the white side, should be an Alexander Star puzzle logo. This one actually is in a little bit better shape than the one I have currently, and I definitely look forward to solving this and having this displayed in its solved state. Let me just look at this quickly. This definitely is the stickered version. I really am looking for a painted version of this, which supposedly they made after the stickered versions, since the stickers on these tend to wear off very quickly. But as you can see, a very good condition example of the Alexander Star. Glad to have a good one of these in my collection. I have one already, but that one has stickers that are peeling pretty badly. Next up here, hopefully the cap is somewhere in the box there, because as you can see, a cap has fallen off. It's a Moyu Crazy Yi Ling, I believe. This is actually like a Fisher Cube shape mod, which is kind of interesting because the Fisher Cube is a shape mod of the 3x3 already, but this is put off even farther to one side, and it really is kind of an odd puzzle. It shape shifts even crazier than the Fisher Cube does, and all in all, it's a very interesting solve. I can solve one of these fairly easily, but nonetheless, it is very cool, solidly built, as Moyu puzzles tend to be. Next up, after that, actually having a lot of MF3RS puzzles, I'm starting to realize, because these cubes feel very, very solid compared to some of the aftermarket puzzles. This is a cube that somehow has evaded me for years at this point. I've had many opportunities to buy one, just never ended up picking one up. This is a MF3RS gear ball. I'm sure it's a very simple solve, but I do like the stickerless nature of it, and turning on it, actually, it's a little bit catchy. But all in all, it turns very, very well. Definitely will be interesting to speed solve this later, but there it is, a MF3RS gear ball. A lot of people have these in their collections. And next up here is a Rubik's Revolution. This is a puzzle that I actually sold off a while back, but it's not super uncommon to find. Good to have another one though, and as you can see, this is not actually a twisty puzzle. This is a button pressing puzzle, more for the collection than anything else. Next up here is a gear cube, and this is a MF3RS gear cube. So that's actually really cool. Has Oscar Van Deventer's logo right there, and also the MF3RS logo. This turns a little bit worse than the gear ball, but also feels very solidly built and feels a bit better than any other gear cube that I've tried before. So it'll be interesting to solve on this one. Basically turn it 180 degrees in any direction, and then you can rotate it. And it is a fairly easy solve. If you've never solved a gear puzzle before, they are fairly easy to solve. It just takes a bunch of 180 degree turns in multiple directions, and that solves it fairly easily. It's definitely not as hard as a 3x3. Then next up here, this is actually an interesting one that I haven't seen before. This is a Lin Hoi Toys Gear Cube. And as you can see, this one is scrambled, so I might actually try and time-lapse the solve of that at the end of this. I'm not going to be super great at solving it, because I haven't solved a gear puzzle in a while, but I'm pretty sure just by trial and error I can get this one solved. So anyway, I'll set that aside and I'll come back to that at the end. And this is also a cube that I sold off in the past and didn't actually really regret getting rid of. This is a Super Square One. I believe I bought my original one for $1.68 on eBay, as they were really trying to have a blowout sale on these. But basically this is a 4-layered plus the crazy center square one. And actually, as you can see, I already rotated the center there, which can be rotated back just by moving it there. But this is a QJ puzzle, and really, I don't know, I've never learned how to solve one of these, and they are really weird as far as cubes go. Mainly because of the center that you kind of have to rotate by squeezing it, and then it has 4 layers. It's a square one. I'm not super into square one puzzles, but it's great for the collection nonetheless. As you can see, it has the QJ logos under 2 of the stickers there, so that's also interesting with QJ puzzles. You can usually find logos on them if you look under the stickers. Next up here, this is actually the more common of a set of 2x2 Rubik's heads, which let me try and solve this at the end of this also. This is a Bart Simpson head, and actually this one feels pretty high quality. I believe this is made by Rubik's brand, or was made by Rubik's brand sometime in the early 2000s, and it feels very solid. It is based on a 2x2 mechanism, as you can see right here, and let me quickly see if I can solve this. I believe that this would be a Soon algorithm right here. This is very stiff to turn, so this is going to take a little while to execute properly. But let me try and execute that and see if I can actually get this solved right here on camera. Very, very stiff to execute. Kind of like a Rubik's Star Wars 2x2 head, which I also have some of. And as you can see, this is a Y perm, so I'm not going to try and execute that. Let's try my alternate A perm. This is so stiff, I don't want to risk messing it up, which I definitely would do with the Y perm. And there you go. As you can see, it's now solved, and I never really was much into The Simpsons, but that is a really interesting Rubik's brand puzzle for the collection, and will definitely have a place in there. Just quickly checked the little inscription right there, and this was made in 2001 by Fox and Rubik's in a collaboration. Turns very, very stiff, as you can see there. And all in all, it is a pretty solid puzzle, but definitely only for the collection rather than anything speed solving related. Zoom in here again. This is a mirror blocks, which is unstickered, which definitely tends to happen with these and doesn't affect solving obviously much. This one's definitely pretty catchy. I'm curious to see what mechanism this has in it. And as you can see, this is likely a Shengshao mirror blocks, but I definitely have one that's unstickered laying around, and that definitely happens. But anyway, just another mirror blocks for the collection. Fairly ordinary. Next up here, this is actually a puzzle I've been looking forward to getting for a while. This is a Rubik's tiled 4x4. This is the new Rubik's 4x4 per se. And as you can see from the top layer here, it does have the Rubik's logo almost worn off, which definitely happens when you solve these puzzles. And first impressions, this thing turns fairly horribly compared to other 4x4s in the market. It's definitely solvable, but the outer layers are pretty stiff and clacky, while the inner layers are actually pretty fast. So I don't know, it's definitely not the worst 4x4 I've ever tried, but it's definitely not a super great 4x4. I'm not sure if it pops or anything. I definitely wouldn't recommend the Rubik's 4x4, which is obvious because it is a Rubik's brand cube, but great for the collection, and it has the tiles, which is one that I've been looking for. I have the original Rubik's Revenge puzzle, and also have the stickered Rubik's 4x4. This is the Rubik's tiled one. Came out around the same time as the Rubik's 2.0 cube. Okay, next up here, we actually have a 5x5. I don't actually remember which one this is, so I'll put it up on the screen once I figure that out, but turning on this is definitely not super great. I wonder if this is a V-Cube 5 maybe? Either way, it definitely turns very swishily, but also with a bit of a click with every turn. It's pretty stiff. And all in all, I guess it's not horrible. It does corner cut just a little bit there, as you can see, weird catch. But that is a 5x5 in white, and definitely a fairly vintage one, just by the turning quality of it. Quickly do a checkerboard on here. Shades are kind of interesting. I definitely guess this is a V-Cube 5. But missing the V-Cube sticker. Okay, next up here, just a normal concave cube. And that's about par for the course with concave cubes. It's actually the worst one I've tried yet. But let me quickly reassemble that and get back into first turns. That went fairly horribly. And wow, actually this is a different concave cube than either of the ones I've had before. This looks like a stretched Guhong mechanism, which all of them have Guhong mechanisms, but I thought they looked a bit different in this one. Okay, we'll have to find another piece of that, but I guess I can do turns on, let's see here, probably this side right here. This one definitely turns a ton worse than any other concave cube that I have, which I think I have 3 other ones, and none of them exploded on me like that. This one is very sluggish and catchy. So I'm curious to know actually which brand this would be. But as you can see, that is another concave cube, and this definitely lives up to the reputation of these of being really horrible. My other two actually, they're not great, but they're not horrible either. Okay, so a couple more just kind of interesting puzzles before we get into the other puzzles that I got here, just normal 3x3s and stuff. This one here is a Rubik's 2x2, and actually seems to be fairly well broken in, because it does turn better than like an out-of-the-box one, which I do have. Also have a more broken in one, which actually has the logo sticker missing. which is not a sticker. It's actually kind of printed on there, and that tends to wear off over time. As you can see, this one is about half worn off, and it definitely is a bit better broken in than that out-of-the-box one that I have. Next up here, we have a YJ or Moyu Cubing Classroom. I'm not sure exactly which series this would be, if it's older or newer, but either way, this is a windmill cube. And as you can see, this one turns just like any other YJ Guanlong mechanismed cube, kind of like that. As you can see, there is a Y-perm. These are kind of fun puzzles to solve because of the kind of odd layer arrangements. The last layer is always kind of weird. At least the PLL stage is kind of difficult for me. So I might have to learn how to solve that a little bit better sometime. But as you can see, it just seems to have 2 pieces to the side instead of 3, which causes some interesting things. Okay, and next up here, we have another twisty puzzle. This is the 1x1 Megaminx. This one is extremely stiff out of the box, so I wonder if anybody actually lubed or tensioned this. Might need to have a little bit more setup done to it before it'll turn as good as I know these can. This is by the Cubicle, and these tend to be actually really good, so I'm not sure what's up with this one. It seems stuck. Maybe somebody like accidentally super glued it while they're magnetizing it. I don't know, but anyway, 1x1 Megaminx, very cool puzzle. I have one already, but this is definitely a good addition to the collection. Okay, and next up here, we have a Chi Megaminx. I believe this is called the Chi Zhang, which is the budget Megaminx, or is that the Chi Hang? Maybe the Chi Hang Megaminx. I believe that's what it is. But either way, this is Chi's budget Megaminx, and it's actually pretty good. I wouldn't say this is as good as the Galaxy V1 or V2 because I haven't tried those yet, and I've heard those are really, really good. But I definitely would say this is my main right behind the Yushin Little Magic V2. I actually have one in the background here in Superflip, and I definitely really like this cube. It has a very, very nice feeling out of the box. It corner cuts well, and all in all, I think it's a very, very good budget Megaminx on the market for the price. Okay, so next up here, I actually don't know which cube this is, but if I had to guess, I'd say this is a Yushin Blue, just because of the smaller size and the feel. I'm not sure if this has stock springs or thunderclap swap, but either way, it's a very good 3x3, especially when magnetized. I actually have 2 of these right now, and they both turn very, very well. One thunderclap spring swapped and one not, both magnetic, so it's cool to have a non-magnetic variant to try out. And all in all, it definitely turns fairly well. That's definitely one of those cubes that takes more setup than not. Okay, and there's the center cap for the Crazy Yiling, so that's good that came along with it. And after that, we have what looks to be a GAN cube here, which is definitely a GAN Air, and I'd say this is just the standard GAN Air. It feels very, very solid and has fairly good turning, as those tend to have, but it does tend to have some center layer catches, which is why people did not quite like these cubes, or at least the opinions were mixed. I definitely tend to like them, and this one seems fairly well broken in, turns well, GAN Air, standard. And next up here, this is actually a limited edition Weilong GTS, which was sold by the Cubicle a while back. I don't remember exactly which one this is, but this must be the candy cane version of this. I really do like the Weilong GTSs, and it's cool to get my hands on some Cubicle limited editions. This one, as you can see, has white caps on the outside and red on the inside, which is actually a really interesting look, and it turns exactly like you would expect from any older Moyu Weilong GTS. Very, very well, but a little bit different than the newer GTS 2 cubes. Just check if it's magnetic there. I didn't think it was, but it definitely has kind of an interesting feel to it. Not quite as dry as some other ones I've tried out before. Okay, next up here, I actually don't know which cube this is, so I'll put this up on the screen once again, but this is definitely a cube of some sort. And let's see here, it turns fairly well. Trying to come up with a guess of what this could be exactly. Let me take a quick look at the mechanism here. Looks very basic. I'd say this is probably just a standard YJ cube, maybe a YJ Yulong or something. I haven't had one of these in quite a while, and this one definitely turns interestingly. It's definitely not from the Cubing Classroom line or anything like that. So either way, there it is. Like I said, I'll put it up on the screen. Turns fairly well. And next up here, this is just an interesting dollar store cube. This was actually in pretty good condition. Those stickers or painted plastic tends to wear off pretty quickly on these. But as you can see, this just has some interesting shapes and patterns, and is just a standard dollar store cube. I don't have one of those exact patterns yet, so that's pretty cool. And last but not least, we have 3 Rubik's brand cubes here, or at least very old speed cubes. This one here, I actually was hoping was going to be an actual vintage Rubik's brand cube, but this is just a reissue. it definitely turns a lot better, I'd say. Like if you saw my unboxing of this reissue Rubik's brand cube, you would have seen that I definitely rated this as my best out of the box Rubik's brand cube ever. This is actually like a Rubik's Speed Cube before the Rubik's Speed Cube came out, which is really weird. It is fairly loosely tensioned, even though it uses the standard Rubik's mechanism. It turns a lot better than a normal Rubik's brand, definitely more like a cube for you, which is really, really strange. But it does have the old logo and is all in all pretty cool. It comes in a packaging reminiscent of the original 98 Rubik's brand, but is definitely a reissue that was made modernly by a different company. Next up here, if we check the color scheme quickly, that'll tell you that that was from probably the mid 80s rather than the early 80s. And I'm not sure if this is going to be a Wonderful Puzzler cube or an actual Rubik's brand cube. From turning though, it definitely feels like a standard Rubik's brand cube. The Wonderful Puzzlers tend to have a little bit different turning feel, but as it doesn't have a logo, you can't really confirm that very easily, and trying to get a piece out is going to be very difficult, but it turns okay. And this is probably a mid 1980s original Rubik's brand cube. And next up here, as you can see from kind of the screw indentations here, before I even turn it, I'm going to guess this is a Wonderful Puzzler. And yeah, I'd say that's probably what that is. Instead of a Rubik's brand cube, that is probably a Wonderful Puzzler cube, which is actually a copy of the Rubik's brand cube, which was sold a bit cheaper back in the 1980s. I believe those are made in Russia and possibly China. I'm not sure exactly, but either way, it turns okay, and it's another Rubik's brand cube, or at least vintage Rubik's type cube for the collection. Okay, so I guess I'm going to time-lapse this section here, but let me zoom out a little bit here, and let's do a quick solve on the Gear Cube, and then I'll end up this video for today. And actually, you know what? That's what's weird about this Gear Cube. This is actually a Super Gear Cube, I believe, or something like that. I don't know the exact terminology, but as you can see, the middle layer shifts, and then the outer layers on both sides are geared. Wow, that's actually a cooler puzzle than I anticipated it being. So, all in all, I have no idea how to solve this. I will have to solve this later. Okay, so that is the full extent of all these different cubes that I got from CrossFirst Cubing, and then, of course, the magnetized MF3RS2 from DailyCubing. Like I said, I'll make sure to put their Instagrams and YouTube in the description below, so make sure to check them out. And shout out to them for selling me these cubes. They're very, very good, and thank you so much for shipping them so quickly. So anyway, that's about it for this video today. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe below if you enjoyed. Make sure you check out my Instagram at chaos_cuber. Chaos Cuber out. On to more unboxings in the future. Goodbye.